everyone, welcome back to Straight Talk with Dr. Erik. And I gotta tell you, today's show is going to be incredible. There's a couple of reasons. Number one, the topic is a very, very controversial, very interesting topic. Number two, I have my very good friend here with me, Grant McGaugh. Grant, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Grant is an incredible person. He is an individual who builds people's brands up. He is an extraordinary entrepreneur. And actually, when I came to South Florida, right, I was a big boy in New York, but I didn't really know a lot of people in South Florida. And you and I met at a golf course. And Grant, you gave me some suggestions and opened up some doors for South Florida Hymns and other great organizations. So I got to thank you for that publicly.
Well, I want to thank you because on that golf course, you gave me so much knowledge about what it's like for a physician in today's healthcare system. And I asked you a ton of questions. We both couldn't golf. We have to just put that out there.
I was horrible.
But we were very good conversationists, and that's what golfing is all about as far as I'm concerned. So we had a great conversation. We got to know each other. And here we are years later still having these in-depth conversations about how we can actually improve the healthcare system.
For sure. And actually, there is one article that we're going to discuss today. This is fresh off the press, February 21st, 2025. And I'm going to read it, and the folks listening will be able to see it in the back. U.S. Justice Department opens civil fraud investigation into United Healthcare. Right now, you and I, we don't know the specifics of it. We're not here to bash United Healthcare, say positive or negative. We're just reporting the news and trying to get people's input, the folks who are listening, the professionals. You can comment below what your opinion is. And so let's go through, like, what is this
awareness
lawsuit?
Is power. You've got to understand what's going on. These are where your tax dollars are at work. You need to understand these things.
100%. And so, like, let's look at what it says. The U.S. Department of Justice is reportedly investigating the insurance giant United Healthcare for its Medicare billing practices. The federal government is examining whether United Healthcare is using patient diagnosis to illegally increase the lump sum monthly payments received through the Medicare Advantage program. So the conversation here is specifically about the Medicare Advantage program, according to the report from the Wall Street Journal. So let me ask you something. When we're talking about increasing the diagnosis, playing with, like, what is that? Like, you're not a physician, you're not an insurance guy, you're not a medical practice, right? You're in the branding and the healthcare technology space. When you read something like that, without me telling you, as we had a conversation before, what does that mean to you? What do you think about when you're looking at Medicare Advantage plans? Your mom may be on it, your pops may be on it. What's going through your mind?
Honestly, I'm thinking that the government has outsourced a big part of the healthcare system to a private organization in which they now have to investigate because, I don't know, or not enough oversight. But then I got to think about, well, how does that affect me? And I don't know because I'm not utilizing the program. But as you said, my mother, who's in her 80s, how's that affect her if she needs to utilize this care? Because you utilize the care more and more as you get older. So I'm very curious.
Yeah, so it's very interesting in that this you said it correctly. The goal is that Medicare outsource to private organizations to better manage the cost of care, increase access, right? Increase the value that the patients are receiving, right? And decrease the cost and increase the efficiency. Yeah. So let's continue reading. So Grant, just so folks know, United Healthcare is and there are many Medicare Advantage plans. They're huge. But this specific article, let's read right from over here, Grant.
Yeah, this caught my attention. And it says, although it is best known for its insurance operations, United Healthcare is one of the largest corporations in the world with a $457 billion market capitalization, and its businesses touch health technology, pharmacy benefits, and physician practices. But this is the point that really got me.
Yeah.
It says the company is so large that one industry analyst estimated 5% of the U.S. gross domestic product flowed through its infrastructure each day. This is every day. It is the largest employer of doctors in the United States, with more than 90,000 physicians in 2023, or nearly 1 in 10 American doctors.
So it's a huge organization, probably touching you guys in the audience. And this is an interesting case because what is being alleged here in this article, right, allegedly, is that patients' diagnoses were used to increase the lump sum monthly payment. So I'm not the biggest experts, but I'll tell you kind of like a layman's understanding what that means, right? So very, very interesting for people to hear. You are Grant McGaugh. Mm-hmm. Okay. Grant, you have a certain number of diagnoses. I'm going to make them up. You have hypertension, diabetes, and hyperlipidemia. Because of these diagnoses, Grant, there is a cost that's attributed to what is an average cost of care for an individual with your diagnoses. Mm-hmm. Let's call it $10,000. Okay, so on average, most people with those 3 diagnoses, and I'm making this number up, is $10,000. Okay, very nice. Now, if I'm a Medicare Advantage plan, I get paid from Medicare based on the number of diagnoses that you have. The more diagnoses, and that makes sense, right? Because the more diagnoses that you have, therefore, the higher the cost of care for you. And that makes sense.
Sure.
If you have atrial fibrillation and congestive heart failure, and not the 3 I mentioned, that means your cost of care will go up, right?
Yes.
So what this is alleging is that United Healthcare and other Medicare Advantage would increase your diagnoses by sending their own nurse practitioners and nurses and people to your home or your office, right, to your doctors, and being like, oh, Grant, you don't only have this. It was missed that you also had a diagnosis of pre-diabetes. Because the pre-diabetes code will increase from $10,000 with your cost of care to $15,000, $20,000. Now, this is, again, I'm not using facts, or this is how I understand this suit to be brought. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about what I just told you? Because that's kind of deep, right? Like most people don't think about it that way.
They don't. And when you put it in those terms, I have to understand, again, who is this company? What is this corporation? And what is their mission? What do they do?
Yeah, I'm going to have you talking because we want your voice to be crisp and sound.
Yeah. And you have to understand, they're in the business of making money. They're a for-profit entity. So, but then are they really in the business of making money, or are they in the business of providing good quality health care? That's the question. But this suit tells me that you are...
That it's a question that we don't know, right? I mean,
we don't know, but allegedly,
right,
that you are taking advantage of the opportunity given to you by the U.S. government, and you are lining your own pockets. That's what it says to me.
And it could. Now I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to be like, okay, Grant, but what am I doing that's wrong? If Grant McGaugh really does have a diagnosis of pre-diabetes, mm-hmm. and nobody knew about it, mm-hmm. and I sent someone, and they really, with a fact, I didn't make this up, but I found that you did, and I just documented that you do have this diagnosis. Yes, your cost of care went up because I found that diagnosis, but it is what it is. You have it. What did I do that's wrong? So I'm kind of playing like if I were to bring a case and I was United, I would be like, oh, what am I doing that's wrong?
Here's the deal. I believe in getting a second diagnosis. It's like, okay, you're telling me I have this condition.
Yeah.
Wherever it might be. Can I get a second opinion?
Because you're saying if I'm incentivized to give you more diagnoses, then obviously I'm going to do everything I can to give you more so I can get paid more. So that's why you want to get a second opinion.
Especially if it's going to affect my premium. Now, if it's not really affecting my premium, it's not coming more out of my individual pocket.
But it's coming out of the taxpayers' pocket.
But that's the deal. It's coming out of the U.S. government's pocket. So my incentive, again, as an individual, might be like, it doesn't, my monthly payment doesn't really change any. I hope you're going to give me if it is a legitimate diagnosis, you're going to give me medication to
right.
manage it and I'll be okay.
Right.
I'm not so incentive to get that second opinion. But what about the U.S. government? Would they, I guess what's happening now, maybe they do want to get someone else to look at this.
And Graham brings up an interesting point in that should those who are incentivized to get paid more based on the diagnoses of patients, should they have the ability independently to put a diagnosis on a patient? Or should there be a third party that's a neutral third party that does that because the third party is not incentivized to increase the diagnosis? So I get that.
Yeah.
And I think, listen, I'm not a prophet, but I think where things will go with this is that before, like the Medicare Advantage plans will not be able to use their own people to put diagnoses. They're going to use a third party that's a hopefully, quote unquote, neutral third party, right? And that's important.
I think it's very important. You have to understand that if you are a for-profit company, there's nothing wrong with being a for-profit company. That means you are coin operated.
What is that? What do you mean?
Coin operated. That your whole reasoning for existence is profitability.
Right.
That is what you do.
Yep.
The U.S. government is not a for-profit entity.
Correct.
Right? So their business model fundamentally is different. Right? So I understood the idea of what the U.S. government was doing years ago. Hey, we'll outsource this. We'll bring in a private company. They will be, quote unquote,
more efficient, more lean,
ethical.
Ethical
in what they're doing. And you should be able to see, the U.S. government should be able to track, hey, are we seeing the result that we signed up for? Are we getting lower amount of diagnosis? Are we getting a lower amount of payment? Are we getting better patient outcomes?
Because you know what's interesting? The cost of care, we all have, and I would love, and I'm sure Grant would too, for the folks in the audience who there's a lot of experts who are my followers, and you have a whole bunch of followers who follow you, and I'd love to know their input to some of the things that we're saying, because, you know, Grant, there's so much buzz about this new program is going to save money. This new program is going to be saving money. But when you look at the numbers, right? Someone says, people talk, numbers scream. Tom Ellsworth from Valuetainment, from Patrick Bet-David, they say, people talk, numbers scream. When you're looking at the numbers and the cost of care, all these new programs are great, but the cost of care is not on the big picture going down. Right. And I want you to read something that you said was very interesting too. You want to read that, Grant?
I will read that. It says, however, a raft of studies now show the program probably costs taxpayers billions more each year.
The Medicare Advantage program, right?
Exactly. It's costing taxpayers billions more each year. And a study by Medicare Payment Advisory Commission, that's MedPAC, found that in 2024 alone, Medicare Advantage plans probably cost taxpayers $83 billion, which is 22% more than traditional Medicare.
Now, folks, digest that for a second, right? It says probably, and I don't know the data, and MedPAC did their it's a commission, it's a Medicare Payment Advisory Commission, and I don't know the politics behind it, I don't know who makes it up. But if we can believe what it says, it costs taxpayers $83 billion more, or 22% more than traditional Medicare that your dad or your mom can get. So there's a cost issue there. Okay, so it was supposed to decrease the cost, but according to this, it didn't. Now, I want you, if you can, Grant, please read this part, because as a doctor, this is where it's really near and dear to my heart over here. Numbers are important, but read this over here, Grant, please.
Very important. Further, an increasing number of patients have complained about how the program makes it difficult to access care. For example, by requiring patients to seek permission or prior authorization from insurers before treatment.
Right? So let's unpack that. One is access of care, and I want to share with you some of our experiences, because we're in the medical field, right? I run a tech company, but we have another company that I run focused on service, right? We go to people's home and we help folks, grandmas and grandpas in the home. Now, if I wanted to go see your dad, for example, and I said, Grant, I'm a great doctor. So yeah, your whole team, you guys are amazing. Please come to my dad.
Yeah.
Say, Grant, does your dad have straight Medicare? You say, no, doc. My dad has a Medicare Advantage plan. Whatever one, ABC. I'll be like, okay. I'm going to say to my team, do we accept this Medicare Advantage plan? My team will say, no, we're not on the panel. I'll say, why are we not on the panel? We should be on the panel. Let's apply. So I'm going to go to my credentialing team and say, hey guys, can you guys get me on Medicare Advantage ABC? We're going to send the application. Do you know what happens most of the time?
No.
We get a letter saying, unfortunately, our panel for new physicians is closed. You cannot be on the panel to see patients who have Medicare Advantage ABC, which means if you really wanted me to see your pops, your dad, you can't have me see him. So when you're talking about increased access to care, honestly, that I have a pet peeve with.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that as a consumer?
Well, it's restrictive. And it's not based on competency, let's just say that, or emotional connection, right? And choice. Like what?
Ooh, that choice.
What is the choice do I have? Now you brought up something that I'm starting to understand, but I need more clarification on the difference between traditional Medicare and a Medicare Advantage plan. I thought one was a supplement, but you're saying they're two different things.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. That's a great point. So traditional Medicare is like a golden card for your mom and dad. You can go to any doctor that accepts traditional Medicare. There's no pre-authorization process for anything. No problem. They go in, they get what they need. When it comes to Medicare Advantage plans, since it's privately owned, right? Now it's a business. Now, the more I spend, the less I make. So I have to be very cost conscious, which is fine. We don't want wasteful spending. We don't want someone ordering 3 MRIs when they were done in a matter of 3 months sequence. I get it. But now there's a limit and there's a restriction on the cost and your access. Some hospitals now are having huge beefs, huge arguments because they're not being paid by these Advantage plans. They're like, we're not going to accept patients. So if you, wow. It's in the news.
Yeah.
So I tell, we as you know, we have a new program with Medicare called the GUIDE program. It's a dementia program. Now look what's interesting. This is for patients who have straight Medicare, and I can provide your mom or dad with dementia-related care, and you, Grant, because you're taking care of mom and dad, I can provide respite. I can provide additional hours and pay other home care agencies to take care of your mom and dad where you have to fly out on a business trip to California. Okay. Now, that sounds good because your caregiver burnout is a real thing, right?
Sure, of course.
If you have Medicare Advantage plan, I can't offer you that program.
Wow.
Only if you have straight Medicare, because Medicare Advantage plan has their own programs that they're supposed to use.
Now, is it comparable? Is it?
I don't know, and I haven't heard of something like that. But that's one of the things that we kind of have to think about is access to care. Well, you said something incredible. Restriction, like restricting people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is something, choice. Do I add a choice or is it a contract? Maybe I'm on this plan for a couple of years and then it comes up for renewal. Or is it one and done? I just signed my rights. Can I go back and forth? Or
there's ways to go back. There's a lot of, obviously, it's difficult to go back from what I understand. There's certain incentives that are financial incentives that come with Medicare Advantage plans. For example, there's a financial stipend that you can get, from what I heard. So think about it. I come to your dad and I say, hey, Gramps, I'll give you $150 a month bonus coupon for this. And I'm going to give you free that. And I'm going to give you free this. And then your pops is like, that's great. But what I'm not going to tell your dad is that you can't see the same doctor maybe because the panel is closed. You may not be able to get the same medications because there's a higher copayment for something. Like there's things that... There's restrictions that I'm not going to be telling your dad because in his mind, all he sees are these bonuses that he's going to get.
Let me ask you this. Because in the working world, there's HMO.
Yeah.
There's PPO.
Yeah.
And there's you have to be a part of these plans. Is that similar?
It's similar. It's
Yeah.
very similar. There's some differences, but yes, that's in the commercial world. You have the PPOs, the HMOs, and I just feel like this article is super, super interesting. And their statement was made by, it said, in a statement responding to the Journal's report, the Wall Street Journal, United Health Group said the Wall Street Journal continues to report misinformation on the Medicare Advantage program. The government regularly reviews all Medicare Advantage plans to ensure compliance, and we consistently perform at the industry's highest level on those reviews. So, I mean, what they're saying is like, look, the government never told us that we can't send someone to a patient's home to see if they really have another diagnosis that nobody knew about. And we're following Medicare standards. We're not breaking any rules. And how are we to blame? We're following the rules. The rules didn't tell us. I see the expression on your face.
Yeah, well, it's, as you said earlier, the money screams. The finance screams. What is the actual end result in financial metrics at the end of the day? That is what should be on the table, not what you say.
But what you do.
Is what it's been recorded.
Yeah.
This is the result of your activity. This is what's under investigation. So whether you intended it or not, this is what's happening, and we need to take a look at that.
Yeah, I think it's especially now with the new administration, with the Trump administration, and they're looking at all the costs and trying to cut all the costs. I think this is going to be a big discussion. And the reason this is important for people to know and research, and I'd love, again, Grant and I would love for you to comment below on some of the things that we're saying, because we're not experts, right? No. We're reading and we're talking about our personal experiences, but I'm sure there's some experts that can comment and enlighten the audience. But it's important to people, because if there's going to be cuts to Medicare Advantage, if there's going to be cuts to certain programs, if there's waste that's somewhere as being alleged here, people have to be prepared so they can shift their mom and dads to the right place. I love traditional Medicare. Yeah. I love straight Medicare. My grandma is on straight Medicare. Anybody who I know and love, I say, guys, Medicare is the way to go. I love it. And there are different programs. Have you ever heard about like ACOs, accountable care organizations? Yeah. You've heard about. So there's ACOs where you can keep your straight Medicare, but you're still in an accountable care organization that still manages your risk, and you're not restricted. So there's options that people should look at.
Here's the deal, and I'm glad you brought all this up. Say with someone like myself, nearing retirement age, getting out of the corporate world. As I mentioned earlier, I was in that world of HMOs, PPOs, all that stuff. Not very familiar with the Medicare world, Medicare Advantage worlds, because I have never used. Now there's a big population of people now about to go into this world, the biggest population ever in U.S. history.
Yes.
And now you're going into this kind of healthcare world. And remember this, you're now at your most vulnerable. You've never maybe had healthcare issues, but now you're getting older. You're starting to break down. Little things are starting to happen. You're starting to get into this world, and you have no idea. All you're hearing is words on paper. Traditional Medicare, Medicare Advantage, the supplement. You're like, this is new. I need to be educated on this. And this is why we're having this conversation.
I really enjoy the conversation. So again, I asked the audience, if there's something that you know that the folks who are going to be watching this, and they can read your comments below, comment, right? We should all as a community have this conversation, because it's through conversations like this that we can effectively cause change and educate people and really help people who need help the most. And I'm really, really glad, my friend, to have you on the show. Can you tell the audience a little bit about what you do, what your company does as well?
Absolutely. So 5-star BDM is for a business development manager or brand development manager, depending on what it is that my service is providing you as a company. And I got my start in technology. I've been in information technology 25 plus years, and I got into the healthcare vertical about 7 to 8 years ago, right? And then also into the finance world and investment banking about 6 years ago. I've combined those three elements in healthcare, technology, and finance to build up 5-star BDM to be a multi-million-dollar enterprise. That has been my goal for the last 5+ years. A lot of people know me as the brand guy, and I've done a lot with personal branding because it's about starting with your particular story, how to operate in this digital society. That's the technology end of it. And then if you're into entrepreneurship, you're running a business, you got to begin to understand what it takes to begin to scale a business, to raise capital, to understand mergers, acquisitions, depending on what it is that you need to do to get to that next level that you're wanting your business to operate in, and then exit strategy. All of that I run as a seamless operation from beginning to end. Dr. Erik has an excellent personal brand. He understands the power of it and then how it creates business opportunity for business development that then capitalizes, as you saw earlier, we're talking today, your capitalization is how much is your company really worth? And then it gives you opportunities to grow. And that's what I do at 5-Star BDM.
That is incredible. You know, my first company that we had an exit on was called 5-Star Medical.
No way.
So 5-Star BDM is, I love it. And if people want to reach out to you and kind of get some guidance from you, how can they reach out to you? What's
Absolutely.
the best way?
They can go to my website at 5-Star BDM. That's the number 5, star B like brand, D like development, mmasters.com. They'll go there. You're going to see podcasts with Dr. Erik, myself on there.
And many other people. You've had some incredible people on your show.
Incredible people.
You guys should check it out for sure.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Wealth of information. And I encourage people to do that because they start thinking through their journey, depending on where they're at, whether it's career development, business development. If you've got questions around financial empowerment, you've got questions around technology, innovation, all these things, you hear from masters just like Dr. Erik here,
thank you.
giving
Thanks,
their best interviews.
Grant, thank you so much for your time, your input. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, my friend.
Likewise.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Dr.